baby come from.
Yeah! Guess who's gonna go today? Hey, piggies! That one pig was a problem, so we had to do it separate. Alright, so. Ooh. Alright, so. I have been working on baby stuff, as I just showed. The pigs are going to go today. And that was a whole episode trying to load them in. I'm glad I didn't film it because it was a nightmare, but regardless, it happened pretty quick because there were 3 of us and my dad is much stronger than me. So the last pig that didn't want to go in, my dad pushed and pushed, and me and the other guy who we were working with traded places pulling on its ears. So he held the gate up while I pulled on its ears in order to get it to go forward. And then we got it into the trailer relatively okay. They had to jump from the outside pen into the pen that they were in the back there. So they were used to jumping, but God, when they don't want to move, they don't want to move. So anyway, now I'm going to work on baby stuff because Dante just brought in a new baby that needs to be put on the robot, and I need to still give drugs and everything in the back there because I'm not happy with how they look. But yeah, that's how we're starting the morning, and that's where we're gonna go. So let's do that. Much love to the dollar store for giving me this new atrocious head covering. I haven't been dyeing my hair recently, and it was making me sad. So when I saw this in the safety section in the dollar store, I immediately bought it. So yeah, we're gonna do bedding. So let's get started. Okay, it is after lunch, and now that the pigs are gone, I now need to clean the space because we're getting a bull. I'm hoping we're gonna turn the bull into a steer just because I don't like how aggressive they are, and they scare me now because now I'm used to working with goats and not cows, and like I've had steers when I was younger, but I just they make me nervous now. So anyway, now I gotta work in this. It's just gonna suck. Anyway, let's get started. Okay. One pile, and then there's the second pile. So, that's done for now. Tomorrow we can take a wheelbarrow and go at it. But now there's enough space that if it freezes tonight, we can bring in a heater tomorrow. We can turn that on and we can leave that on. So, that's where we're at. Now it's night chores, but that's been Monday. So, on to tomorrow. Excuse me for looking a little rough. We just finished cleaning up the floor here. I didn't bother to video because there was no point really. But I also took all the cobwebs off the corners. So the plan for tomorrow is going to be waiting for this to dry at least a little bit more. I'm still not happy with how wet it is. And then we are going to put bedding in, and we're going to put a lot of bedding. And I've already changed the head locks on that gate there so that they're open. So the steer or the bull is going to eat through the gates there. And then we'll take waste feed or whatever from, like using a wheelbarrow, we'll bring it in, and we'll use hay, bringing it in that way as well. And then once we get gates back, because my dad apparently lent them to someone else, we're going to use a bunch of gates to build a little pen outside there. So that's where we're at right now. We're gonna call it quits for today because we've done a lot of shoveling in the past 2 days in order to get this place fully clean. Because there was about 4 inches of slop and shit over the entire floor of this room. And so now it's fully clean and the floor is starting to dry. And I'm going to go for a drive. And we'll do that now. Okay, we are on the way to drop off the cookies that I made this weekend. And I finished the card, so I'll take a picture of that when I stop. But we're on the way, and there they are. So, let's keep going. Okay, so I just got finished with the drop off and everything. So I started on fixing the lights like I said I was going to, because we got these bulbs to replace the other ones, and I've reorganized everything that was going on there. So let's plug in the lights and see what it looks like.
morning. It is 5 or so a.m. So my parents are currently on vacation, and as you can hear, I have a chorus of expecting goats that are waiting on me to start with the morning. So I will, for this week, do a complete rundown of what I'm doing to fill in for my dad as of this week. So things may change in terms of like how we're feeding and stuff like that later in the year, but this is just to recap what we're doing right now. So let's get these lights on and let's get started. Morning. Good morning, Beth. You good girl. Chore time? You wanna do some chores? Alright, come on. So the first thing I always double check in the morning as I'm walking past the mixers and stuff is kind of check the numbers. So right now it's kind of hard to see there. Let me see, big guy. Oh, there we go. So right now the number reads 772, which is about approximately good. And then the other mixer reads 670, which is not ideal, I don't think, because that means that the mixing weights in the previous days have been off. But I'm not sure where or when that happens, so that's going to have to be something I'm going to have to watch. But from here, we now go to the barn. So I don't know if you can see it really, but in this corner we have a bunch of automatic settings for the lights, and currently the lights aren't on because it's early enough in the morning and I'm out here early enough that as I said, the lights haven't gone on in the barn. So I don't really like using flash or anything like that in the barn. Even my flashlight, I don't like using it in the barn whenever the lights are out because the goats lose their mind. They do not react well to any kind of like isolated light. They're kind of like moths to a certain degree. There's a bunch that will come towards it, and then there's a whole bunch who will just scatter and run, but they run mindlessly, so they can get themselves hurt. So I personally don't like doing it, but I have done it before, which is how I know how they act. And again, I would prefer just not to do it. So I guess I'll have to show you everything else in a bit. Alright. Note to self, the lights in the barn come on at 5:10. So that's the timer panel for the lights that I was talking about. And good morning, ladies. Now, I was hoping that this wasn't the case, but it is. When I was mentioning the feed weight and how the blue mixer looked off, it's probably because I missed the fact that the robot threw an error last night. So I've got to deal with this get it feeding that last feeding out, get everything reset, and then we can start with today. So I'm gonna crawl up there and I can show you guys what the screen says. And hopefully it's all of the usual problems. So it's currently reading defective silo. That happens whenever it doesn't load properly. So when you press OK, it will give you this. Go to restart. So it's the 6 o'clock feeding. Press restart. And you come over here. Okay, this one was off. That's why it didn't go at all. So, the 6 o'clock feeding out of the blue. On second thought, I've had to stop this because one of the other things that we have to do every morning is clean the alleyways that the feed goes down in. So I have to clean these troughs of all of the leftover debris, which will be easier if I don't run the feeding right now. So I'm going to do that quickly and then we'll get back to running the feed. Basically what that's going to do, now that I've stopped this process away by turning off the one mixer that was turned on, is that now it's going to throw the same error and it's going to keep the same timeline that it originally had. So basically what its brain thinks right now is that it is 6 o'clock at night and it's trying to feed that feeding. So I'll do this quickly and then we'll get back on track. It is unfortunately very regular for the fact that my plans don't go always as planned. The past half week that my parents have been gone have been going really smoothly, so I thought today would be the same. And turns out it's not. It is a very big personal failure of mine in order to have a feeding mix. I will not lie. Mostly because it's not like I'm late. It was last night, something didn't happen. I probably marked it in my brain that I need to check it and then got distracted by something else and didn't notice that it wasn't sitting where it was supposed to be, because it usually sits just a little further more forward. And I don't think I looked at the button or anything. I don't think I realized that it was stopped. So unfortunately that is, like I said, a personal failure of mine, and I need to work on making sure that that doesn't happen anymore. It hasn't happened in a very long time, and it only really happens when the feeder gets out of whack. So I'm hoping that me just missing that dial initially, because the reason why it was off is because I didn't have the blue mixer set on auto. So hopefully I'll remedy that and get that figured out. But yeah. Alright, now that that's done, let's get this show on the road again. Okay, so that's now loaded and that's now running. So from here, we still have the 6:30 feeding that needs to be fed out, and then we can start with this morning's 5 o'clock feeding that was supposed to go out. So, ladies, I'm going to do some of my regular chores, which my dad has no part in. And then I will keep you guys all posted on this. So, let's get started with my day. Time to reset. So, how you do that is okay. Dad must have changed the timers on that because it used to start at 5 something. So, let's see if I'm correct. Wait a minute, that's weird. So, I'm confused. I will shut it off of auto function for now because it's feeding round / group 6 of 6 right now, but I don't know if it's feeding the 5 or if it's feeding the 12:30 because I'm confused as to what the timing was because it wasn't going. Anyway, I'll double check it later. I probably set it up wrong, but we'll deal with that as we get there. So, off of auto, and I'll come and deal with that whenever the robot gets back to where it needs to be. So I forgot that the robot, like me, runs on military time, which is helpful for me, but not necessarily in the context of working in regular life because everybody else in my family runs off of the regular number system. Either way, the robot is set properly and Dad changed the feeding from 5:10 to start to 6:10. So I'm not sure why. I'll double check with him when he gets back, but things are going. So once that's empty, I can make mix. All right, so the robot has run its courses for the morning feeding. I'm going to start the 9 o'clock feeding now to empty the mixers to make more mix. However, I will make sure that the red mixer is fully empty by turning it on full speed, kicking what's left out, and then resetting the scale.
Now we close the door. Alright, so now we're at the point where the blue mixer still has a bunch of stuff in it. So we need to empty that. So we're going to start some of the feeding. So let's do that. While that is loading out, we can now start loading the new mix for today into the red mixer. So that is that bale there is the first cut. That bale there is second cut. And then this bale is the alfalfa stuff. I needed some extra of it yesterday when I was making mix. So I had to open this one early. Otherwise they would still be open and sitting in the yard like that for today. So as we have it on the floor here, we have the first cut, the alfalfa, and then we have the second cut over there. Okay. Now that it's loaded with all of the grains, we're going to start the next feeding to finally empty out the blue mixer, and then we can load the blue mixer. So, let's do that. Alright, that is morning mix made. Everything is set, everything is good. So it should run as it's supposed to. I'll have to keep checking on it though. So that's that. Now, on to next week.